All right, let's do it. Episode number 3 of Tony's Not a Podcast. Steelers win 20-10 over the LA Chargers. Very exciting win. I loved coming in the stylistic thing, right? Good on good, physical versus physical. You know, two teams that desire to win the same way. And what I loved about the way that this game played out is it was really a tale of two halves. You know, I thought the Chargers in the first half of this game had more success offensively than I was expecting, but that all changed on a dime at halftime. The Steelers absolutely dominated the second half of this game. And I think the second half of this game, the reason why, you know, we're all so excited today, right? I am giddy with excitement today about the Pittsburgh Steelers, is because the second half of that game is everything we've wanted out of this Steeler team. You know, I think we're all kind of on board now that the Steelers are not a light 'em up type of team, right? We're not going to go out there and throw 30, 40 points on you. That's just not the style of football that the Steelers are playing in 2024. It really hasn't been that style since like the Killer Bees, right? But I think we all kind of understand what the team does want to do, which is we want to kind of maul you, especially defensively and offensively. We want to run the football. We want to be, what does Tomlin always say? Thoughtfully aggressive. We want to be thoughtfully aggressive offensively. But no, I mean, I think what the Steelers, what fans want to see is like, can we dominate a team, and can we go out there offensively and look semi-competent, right? Can we just look like a competent offense alongside the defense we know we have? And for one half of football on Sunday, boy, did we get exactly that. The Steelers in the second half held the Chargers to negative total yards in the second half. It was a tremendous defensive performance. Obviously, yes, the Chargers had some injuries in the second half of that game. I think Rashawn Slater went down, Joe Alt went down, Justin Herbert went down. And that did change some things, especially on the last couple possessions the Chargers had. But let's not act like before Herbert went out of that game, he was having a bunch of success in the second half of that game. The Steelers defense came out in the second half far more aggressive, wanting to get to Herbert, doing a better job of being thoughtfully aggressive defensively, stopping the cutback lanes that JK did a good job of hitting in the first half. And you look at the two drives that Justin Herbert was in the game in the second half. It was a 3-and-out for negative yards, and then another 3-and-out for negative yards. And then you go over conversely to the way the offense played in the second half. And I've talked about for the last couple weeks now, like, are we sure the Steelers can be this kind of 12, 13 play drive multiple times a game? Like, that's how they're going to have to score. That's how they're going to have to win games. Like, are we sure they're going to be good at doing that consistently? And the Steelers have basically looked me in the face and said, yes, Tony. Yes, we're going to be just okay doing that. They did that. They had three 12 play. Actually, let me pull up the drive chart real quick. They had the 13-play touchdown drive in the first half and then two 12-play field goal drives in the second half. In the second half drive chart for the offense, 12 plays, field goal. They had the interception the next drive, which we'll talk about. Then 12 plays, field goal, 5 plays, touchdown, 5 plays, touchdown, and then 10 plays, run the clock out, game over. I mean, it's as perfect a half of football as you could expect, given where the Steelers are right now in their kind of growth and development, given the personnel that they have, given what they're asking this team to do. That's, I talk about like we're going to crystallize like this crappy brand of football that's not exactly the most exciting to watch, not the wide open offenses scoring 30 and 40 points a game. But this is what Mike Tomlin wants to be. And oh, by the way, let's talk about that. Let's pivot right now to how good could this Steeler team be? Because watching what they did in the second half of this game, giving up negative yards and then scoring on basically every drive other than the tip intercept. Look, coming into the year, some of the frustration among Steeler fans was, I don't know that this brand of football can win in the National Football League anymore. When you watch the Niners, when you watch Patrick Mahomes, when you watch even like the Ravens and Lions and some of the other better offensive teams in the league, right? The problem that people have is like, I don't know that a team that desires to play the way the Steelers want to play can win consistently in the National Football League. Well, in 2024 you can. I mean, that's what the league is kind of turning itself into. And so if you're sitting there today kind of daydreaming about a Pittsburgh Steelers team, like, can they win the division? Like, can they go further than that? Look, it's probably too early, yes, because it's only been 3 weeks. But the league, points per game is going down week over week, not up. I said, I think it was either last week or the week before, like, I think we're writing the obituary on offense in the NFL a little too early because we're only a couple weeks in. But it's not improving week over week. It's actually going down week over week. And in a world where, like, winning football looks like your ability to dominate the line of scrimmage, play ugly football, don't turn the ball over, and play dominating defense. I like the Steelers' chances a lot in that league. Now, it's 3 weeks in. I don't know that we're in that league yet. But, man, watching what we did on Sunday, I think as a Steeler fan today, yeah, you're allowed to daydream a little bit about, like, division title in 2024? I could see it. I could see it. I think as far as the Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson thing, that the book is closed on that, right? We're done there. That's not even a discussion. I think there's almost no chance in my mind that Mike Tomlin's going to come out and announce, like, yeah, Russ is fully healthy and starting against the Colts. Like, that's just not happening. We may go through another couple weeks of, like, I'm not even going to talk about it because Russ isn't healthy. Like, the Tomlin, like, okay, great. Whatever. Justin is your QB1. And as I said last week, I just didn't understand this idea that, Russ is holding this team back. I don't get it. Like, this is a team that's very game script dependent. And when the game script is working in their favor, especially early on, like, they're okay with just kind of shut it down, play safe, let the defense dominate. Especially in a world where, like, it's very obvious that a team like Denver with Bo Nix is just not going to be able to move the football. I think Tomlin's okay in that world. Like, play it safe. We're good. We're not giving up a bunch of points. So, just shut it down. And then in this football game, what I loved about this game is that it was the opposite. According to Justin Fields in his post-game interview said that Tomlin went to the locker room at halftime and challenged the offense. Said, offense, we need you to pick it up. We need you to score some points in the second half. Why? Because I think from a game script perspective, Tomlin was a little worried about some of the success that the Chargers had in the first half of this game. I talked about it. I think the defense in the first half was a little passive. JK was able to get some nice cutbacks. Herbert was finding some guys over the middle of the field, some soft coverage. They were able to move the football a little bit. And I think Tomlin kind of probably looked at that and said, boy, we cannot afford in this game to be down 17-10 if the Chargers were able to come out and move the football like that again and take a big lead. And so he challenged the offense, like, hey, you got to go out there. We got to score some points in this football game. And you saw the Steelers in this game, wanting to use the middle of the field a little more, hitting Freiermuth over the middle of the field, hitting Pickens over the middle of the field, even though he dropped it. Actually, both those two dropped it. This team's got to stop beating itself, which we'll get to. And then Calvin Austin, who, I'm not, look, if you're writing in the comments that, Tony, you need to apologize to Calvin Austin, you're not wrong, you're just early, okay? You're not wrong, you're just early. I may be wrong on Calvin. Calvin may be a part of that list when I talk about who are the Steelers going to be able to rely on for big plays, and I said it was just Pickens and Jalen Warren. Okay, we're going to put in pencil today Calvin Austin. That was a great game. And it's the fact that the Steelers are kind of opening it up a little bit in the middle of the field, the fact that the Steelers are a little more willing to use the middle of the field now, that's where Calvin's going to feast. He's a catch and run type of player. I don't know that you're going to be able to just send him on a bunch of deep routes and you're just going to be like, yeah, Calvin, run faster than everybody else, because some of that's going to be like 50-50 ball situation. He's a small guy. You want to get him in some obvious catch and run like they did, a little dig route or whatever he ran. He had a couple down the seam, catch and run. I think he ended up in the game like 95 yards receiving. Yeah, 4 catches, 95. That's what the Steelers need, especially in this offense. Can they continue to do this 12-play drive type thing? They've done it well so far. Now, one worry I do have about the offense still is in this world where you want to be moving the ball that way, where it's not going to be pretty, it's not going to be through big chunks. They still got to cut out some of this negativity. They were better from a penalty perspective, although they did still have, I think, 2 or 3 like pre-snap or it was basically pre-snap because they were illegal formation or illegal shift. You just can't have that stuff. That is like football 101 stuff. And I get new offense. We're and Arthur's like trying to line up in some exotic stuff and move guys around, but you can't have that. You just cannot have that stuff. So that's got to go. But then also, there's a lot of negative plays in this game. The whole Najee Harris toss play. Are we are we all? Am I alone in saying like I'm kind of done with that play? It's just not Najee's strong suit. Najee is not a guy. Najee's not a guy with juice. We talk about we have. There are guys in the league where you're like, ooh, that guy, he's got some wheels. He's got some agility. Najee's not that guy. No, what Najee is a bruiser, a downhill type runner. Why they continue to want to get Najee moving side to side? I'll give them some. I guess I'll be a little patient with it because it wasn't like they were just pounding it through the A and B gap all game with a bunch of success, right? This team, from a success rate perspective, running the football early on in this game, it was brutal. Actually, I could probably look it up. I wonder what the rushing success rate was for the Steelers in week 3 in quarters 1. Actually, let's just go quarters 1, 2, and 3, right? Because obviously the fourth quarter, they kind of lit them up a little bit. But let me pull this up real quick, and we'll see what the rushing success rate was. And I'm going to explain rushing success rate in a second. Yeah, 26% success rate in the first 3 quarters. And what was it in the first half? Because it felt like it got better as the game went along, which I'm happy about. I'm not trying to disparage that part of this game, but let's go. Oh, yeah, go. Come on. Let's load here. We need to load. All right, we have dead air. Never mind. Forget it. No, I think the Steelers had some problems running the football early in this game. But another encouraging sign, and I think why I'm so happy today, is that in a game like this, good on good, physical on physical, give credit to the Chargers. Like, that defense was playing downhill for the vast majority of this game. Right up until the Steelers made them quit. And that's what I loved about this game is that in a game where it's physical on physical, the more physical team will eventually wear the other one down. And it will eventually get to a point where, they talked about like the dam breaking offensively. Yeah, the dam broke late in this game. And all of a sudden, the Steelers were just breaking off run after run after run. The Chargers basically said, like, check, please. We want out of this one. No, thank you. Like, we've tackled Najee enough. And they wouldn't even want to tackle Cordell Patterson. That's what you love to see. That, again, it's about imposing your will. And yes, those early runs in this game, not successful. But you build on that, and you build on that. And eventually, the dam breaks. I would just like to see them, like, let's understand who Najee Harris is as a player. He's not the, like, toss sweep guy. Off tackle is about as good as I think I want to do with him. Everything between, like, the C gap and the A gap is, like, pretty much where I want to see him, right? Let's just do that. Let's keep him within that. Just understand who he is as a runner, right? I mean, I just want him getting ahead of steam downhill, and I want him running guys over. I get a little frustrated with Najee at times because I feel like he stops his feet early. I feel like if he just kind of put his feet in the ground and just, be that guy. But look, he ends up with a decent stat line, right? I mean, he still doesn't hit 40 yards a carry, 3.9. But it was because at the end of that game, he had imposed his will. That's what the Steelers need to do. That's what you're going to play this style of football. That's how you win. You don't need to come out and run the ball early with success, but you should be setting it up so that late in the game, we're running through your face to end this football game. And that's exactly what happened. Again, go back to the one worry I do have about this football team, though, is the overall success rate. So let's talk about what success rate is and then where the Steelers rank in the National Football League right now from a offensive success rate perspective. So success rate is your ability to stay ahead of the chains, basically. It's a stat created for, like, how often are you able to move the football and continue to stay ahead of the chains, right? You can have a lot of yards in a game, but if they come through 1, 2, 3 plays, we know that's not sustainable. And for a Steeler team that desires to play this style of football where we're going to go on 12, 13 play drives, you want to be a team that can stay ahead of the chains, right? Because that's how, when I talk about how do we do this, how do the Steelers continue to do this consistently, I think success rate is going to play a big part in that. Their ability to stay in second and third and manageable is going to determine the longevity of their ability to continue to go on these kind of drives. So if you look at their offensive success rate through 3 weeks right now. Oh, actually, let's define what. Now, you might be saying, like, how do you have a success rate number? Just how to stay ahead of the chains? What does that mean? Okay, well, the math behind it is this. On first down, how often are you getting 40% of the yards you need to get? Right? So first and 10, how often are you getting 4 yards? How often are you making it 2nd and 6? Again, staying ahead of the chains. How often on 2nd down are you getting 60%? So back to that same example, if it's 2nd and 10, how often are you able to make it 3rd and 4? Again, getting a little more than half back there, so we're just consistently staying ahead of the chains, right? When it consistently stay ahead of the chains. And then how often on 3rd down are you getting 100% of the yards needed on 3rd down? Because obviously, converting on 3rd down is a way for you to continue moving the chains. Unless, of course, you are Nick Sirianni or Dan Campbell, you're just going to go for it on every 4th down. But we know Mike Tomlin not exactly big on going for it on 4th down. So, how often are the Steelers doing a good job of staying ahead of the chains right now? Not very good. They're 28th in the NFL right now. They have a 38% success rate through 3 weeks. Now, they're still able to move the football because, I think in this game, there was the penalty drive the Steelers had in this game. There was a drive where I think they got 3 first downs on penalty, which, hey, I'll take it. Especially watching the Steelers get called for like 20 penalties against the Broncos. Regression to the mean, I guess. But, for a Steelers team that wants to play this brand of football, you are going to need to stay ahead of the chains. And the Steelers did a good job in this football game of getting chunks back, right? And they would have a bunch of negativity and then get it back and be able to hit some big plays on 3rd down. But again, how often are you able to do that? Are you able to do that consistently? The Steelers happen to do that consistently through 3 weeks, but I'd love to see this number creep up even higher to like league average. Where the Steelers are right now, if you look at the teams that are around the Steelers, who else is around 38% success rate? The Bears are down there at 37. The Panthers are down there at 36. The Browns, by the way, are at 33. The Browns. The teams that are like ahead of the Steelers, though, like the Broncos, Bo Nix, 39% success rate. The Dolphins, who really haven't been the same offense this year, and Tua's hurt now, 39% success rate. Daniel Jones and the Giants, 40% success rate. Will Levis, 40% success rate. Anthony Richardson, 40% success rate. Gardner Minshew, 41%, right? I mean, there's clearly room for improvement there. And I think if there's where I want to see the Steelers continue to get better, right? And I think this team has been getting better week after week, right? They're doing a better job of, I was worried early on, how are you going to get those kind of chunks? And are you going to be able to get, significant chunks or even those kind of medium chunks in the game? And they were able to do that in this one. They worked Calvin in a little more, and Calvin was able to do some of that stuff. Pat was a little more involved in this football game. And in a game where, I didn't think George Pickens was as big a part of this. They were still able to move the football, move it consistently. And Justin, statistically speaking, had his best day in a game where George wasn't his usual. I didn't think George had a dominant performance in this one. So again, I think I'm happy with where the Steelers are progressing. This is I think the next piece here, which is if you're going to continue to play this style of football, let's get a little more consistent on a down-to-down basis. Continue to work in those big plays where you can. And this, again, this offense doesn't need to be a top 5 offense in the National Football League in order to get this team where they want to go. This could be a league average team with the best defense in the league. And, they're going to be a pain in the ass to play in the playoffs. I think for me, when I think about what this team can be, how good can this Steeler team be? It's really dependent on how the rest of the NFL goes. If the NFL continues to play the way it is, where games are getting played in the teams regularly, and it's not between two completely offensively deficient teams, the games that should start ringing alarm bells around the league are like Lions, Cardinals, 2 good offenses. That game was played 20-10. What else? You had Eagles, Saints played in the actual teams. I mean, look, it's a tough comparison because it's styles make fights and everything, but let's just go to the Falcons. People laughed at the Steelers offense and said, "Oh, you can only kick field goals against the Falcons." Oh, I just watched the Chiefs kick a bunch of field goals against the Falcons and score 22 points. That's the NFL we live in right now. And if the NFL does not improve, the Steelers are going to be right there, man. 3-0 is not a mirage in the way that football is currently being played through 3 weeks. And as I said, it's not getting better. Offenses are not getting better and better. They're actually getting worse as the year goes. We're all of a sudden in a league where the type of football the Steelers play is the most desirable way to win football games. All right. Anything else I want to talk about with the Steelers? I apologize to Calvin. Oh, I didn't apologize to Calvin, but I'm formulating an apology letter to Calvin. I need to see him continue this, but it It was a massive improvement, especially in a world. One thing that should not go unsaid here is the fact that Van Jefferson got hurt in this game, and that's why Calvin got so many reps, and that Calvin was able to put up this style of performance. That's an awesome thing to see. Tomlin with the next man up mentality in an offense where they're going to need this kind of thing, right? I don't know that they can sustain 12 plays forever, even though they have through 3 weeks. But I also want to see some big plays, and they're getting both. They're sustaining 12-play drives, and they're able to work in some big plays here and there. Very, very exciting. Let's talk about one other thing real quick. The rest of the division is bad. Okay, so let's start with the Ravens real quick. I don't know how many of you guys watched the whole game, Ravens and Cowboys. I had two competing thoughts coming out of that game. One, the Cowboys defense is horrific. I mean, they're just bad. Bad team, bad defense. It's hilarious that the Browns could not move the football against that Cowboys defense because they're soft. I mean, soft with a capital S. But that Baltimore defense is not as well. Last year in games like this, they were so suffocating, right? They were they were maybe the best defense in the league by the end of the year last year. And man, they were so suffocating. I remember just watching that team a year ago and thinking it is so difficult to move the football. And yet at the end of this football game, I understand the game was kind of over, but there were some points at the end of that game. It was like, all right, this is when the Ravens defense is going to show back up, and it never really did. So if you're a Ravens fan, I think there's some concern there. I think there's concern about the offense, just in general. The Ravens offense through 3 weeks is okay, but I think there are, once again, like their ability to consistently move the football is in question. But then defensively, I think is where their biggest question marks are. I know it's a new defensive coordinator. They lost some pieces there. Roquan does not look like the same player. Something happened to Roquan in the offseason. I don't know if he's hurt or something, but he does not look like the same guy at all. So that's the Ravens. I am having so much fun. The Cleveland Browns, honestly, I may be having more fun. I know this is going to sound bad, but it's true. I may be having more fun watching the Browns come to this realization about Deshaun Watson than I am with how the Steelers are playing at 3-0. And I know that's kind of, like, Schadenfreude's a real thing, guys. Okay. And I'm a big believer in it. I'm loving watching. There are two sides of Browns fandom. There is the side over here that is completely, utterly still delusional that like Deshaun is not the problem and it's everything else. And it's the offensive line. No quarterback could win with this offensive line is a fun thing I keep hearing. It's weird how it's just weird how having an elite quarterback doesn't elevate the rest of your team. That's so weird. That's happening in Cleveland. It usually happens that way, but in Cleveland, it should not happen that way. It's so weird. And then there's the other side of the fan base over here that I think is they understanding it. They get it. They're not fully there yet, but they're coming around to like, okay, Deshaun is really, really bad, and dude, we're screwed. But my favorite thing that happens when I listen to these Cleveland, I listen to a lot of Brown stuff over the last 24 hours. And my favorite one that got said is there was a long rant a couple guys went on where they were just like, the problem for this team is that they have no playmakers and the offensive line got old and they haven't replenished in these areas. And, that's the real problem with this team. And I don't know why this team hasn't invested in these areas. They should have been out there investing in the offensive line. They should have been investing in playmakers because, this team doesn't have anyone even close to Malik Neighbors and And I actually, and now, by the way, and this is also said in the context of like, and that's why Deshaun is being held back. Deshaun is being held back by a bad offensive line and the lack of playmakers and And it's so funny because, hello, the two things are related. Yeah, it's crazy that the Browns have not been able to get these star, where do you usually get like these top players? Like what do you usually need to get these top guys in your organization? It's so weird that they haven't been able to do it. It's almost like the Browns, in order to get this Watson guy who sucks, had to get like a second, or had to give up like 3 first-round picks, a second and a third. It's too good. It's too good. So the Browns are. I think the Browns are. I mean, that's got to be an over and done with type situation. I don't think there's coming back there. Maybe they put Jameis in, and it's better. But there's so many problems because the one thing that Browns fans are right about is that, and I think this is where they like come to the right conclusion from wrong or like they like come to the wrong or to the right conclusion from like wrong directions, which is that all the problems they have compound on each other. All the problems that the Browns have are a like compilation of all the different issues that have built up over the last 3 years, right? Like they have not been able to bring in any dynamic playmakers. And the guys that they have brought in that they got all excited about, like Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore, are nothing better than like, role players, right? Jags, as the Cover 3 podcast likes to call people, just a guy. They're just it's your average player. Amari's a good player, but again, Amari is not exactly in a situation where he's a game breaker anymore. He can make the kind of contested catches you saw him make in that game. So, like, yes, the Browns don't have that elite playmaker. That is true. Now, they've tried to use assets to bring in other things, but they don't have that guy. So they don't have a guy who's like, Watson, can you just put it on this guy and let him make something happen? That's not happening, right? There's nobody in this offense that is capable of like, we need a play, someone go make a play. That's not happening. Their offensive line is bad. I mean, they're not wrong when they say like, this offensive line is just not good. And the whole losing Bill Callahan and all that, like it's coming back. That's come back to haunt them a little bit because he was so good at growing and developing players. In a very similar like Mike Munchak way back in Pittsburgh. That's not happening at all either in Cleveland, which then has the cascading effect of Deshaun Watson, who already has a reputation of like he holds on to the ball too long. He's not a guy who's got this, he's read and diagnose type thing. That's just not who they are. And then then on top of all of that, they got Deshaun Watson, who wants to exist in this kind of spread you out 5 wide type situation, which the Browns they just don't have the personnel for that. As I talked about, they don't have the playmakers out there. They wanted to kind of get deeper at receiver. We can draft Cedric Tillman. We can bring in Jerry Jeudy. We can bring in Elijah Moore. Now we have Amari Cooper, right? Oh, all this is going to kind of blend together. David Njoku as well, right? But it just takes a little piece. Njoku's hurt now. Oh, okay. There's no replacing that in this offense. They're not a deep football team by any stretch. Watson holds the ball too long. Their offensive line isn't good. They can't run the football. They can't run the football because they're always in this 5 wide thing. So it's like you're either in spread where we know what you're going to do, or you're going to try and run out of that. I mean, Nick Chubb hit so many things on that team. And then defensively, I'm not going to say anything about them defensively. I want to see, like, they've had some weird games. They were bad against the Cowboys and then, like, turned it back on in the second half. They were bad against the Giants in the first half and turned it on in the second half. I'm not unsure what to think about them defensively just yet, but I do know offensively, it is a cascading problem. They have no one on, like, Deshaun doesn't have a guy who's like, I'm going to go get this guy the ball and he's going to make me a play, right? So Deshaun has to kind of, there's not like, oh, this guy's going to be open, I'm just going to talk, Daniel Jones was able to in this game. I'm going to Malik Neighbors. Like, I'm just going to go to Malik. Deshaun doesn't have that guy, and he probably needs a safety valve right now because it's not exactly reading and diagnosing. And then the offensive line's not blocking for long enough for him to even do his like normal 7-second drop back. It's a cascading thing in Cleveland. It's so great to watch. That organization is. I just, you knew the Watson thing was at some point going to come to a head, and here we are. And I don't know what they do from this point, but I'm excited to watch it. Going back to the Steelers real quick. We'll touch on one other thing, and that is the upcoming schedule, because I've seen it. I've already seen the tweets. Oh, the Steelers could be 8-0 or whatever. Look, the Steelers schedule coming up, it is pretty enticing. I mean, Anthony Richardson against this defense, I think we all know how that should go. Dallas and how soft that defense is. Yeah, I kind of feel good about that one too. Vegas, Gardner Minshew against this defense, I'm feeling pretty good about that one too. New York and the Jets is a tough one, and then you have the Giants, and then the Commanders. Let's not get ahead of ourselves though. Look, yes, I mean I think realistically speaking, honestly, like through week 10, would you be disappointed if the Steelers had 2 losses through week 10? I kind of would be. I know we're all gonna eat shit for this in like 3 weeks, and that's fine. I don't care. I'm having fun. But through 9 games of this season, the Steelers really should be no worse than 7-2. And 8-1 is a definite possibility, and 9-0 is not. Out the realm of it. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but you know what? Actually, screw that, man. I'm a fan now. I'm not an analyst. Okay, I am a fan, and Fan Tony thinks, hell yeah, baby, 9-0. It is certainly within the realm of possibility. Now, injuries, you got to stay relatively healthy. Obviously, sucks what happened to Fautanu. He's going to be out for the year. Could come back for the playoffs when the Steelers make the playoffs, not if. But that's a tough injury because you talk about depth. The Steelers did have a pretty deep offensive line. You saw Mason McCormick come in this game. Obviously, with they already lost to Amalo, so then they had to bring in Spencer Anderson. Now they're bringing in McCormick to be that next offensive lineman. They're super thin at tackle right now because Dylan Cook was already hurt. Now Fautanu goes down. So again, that is a fragile piece now for the Steelers with that offensive line. They need to keep that. They need to keep that healthy. Obviously, wide receiver is another position where like you just can't have a bunch of injuries there because there's one guy who just cannot get hurt or this thing is going to fall apart. Defensively, I'm a little less worried. Obviously, corner is a situation where you need to stay healthy. But man, the way the Steelers are playing football right now, the way the NFL is playing football right now, it does all line up for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's why I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be ashamed of being super excited about where the Pittsburgh Steelers are in after week 3. That was a matchup where we were like, you got to see a test of, are the Steelers playing the brand of football they desire? Are they playing it well? And the answer to that question was hell yes. Now, in a league where we get to be a more spread open team and like teams can start to win that way again, okay, the Steelers are probably going to struggle in that league. You can maybe get away with like upsets here and there, but generally in the modern NFL, those are the most successful styles. But it ain't been that way through 3 weeks. So let's go Steelers.